It is fundamental to know how C++ compilation works and to understand how programs are compiled and executed. Compiling C++ source code into machine-readable code consists of the following four processes. 1. Pre-processing the source code. 2. Compiling the source code. 3. Assembling the compiled file. And 4. Linking the object code file to create an executable file. So here in Windows, I'll show you how to use the command line tools and using a text editor to compile a C++ file. So here I'm going to create a new file opening Notepad++. I'm going to paste in some code, and then I'm going to save this save it on the desktop, and I'm just going to call this Hello Universe. And then the save type, we want a C++ source file. And in this example, we're going to say .cpp. Go ahead and click Save. And at this point, we need to open a command prompt. Now, the command prompt you need to open is a specific developer command prompt. When you install either the build tools or Visual Studio itself, it includes what is called a developer command prompt. So if I come down here and I type search and I say developer, and we want the developer command prompt for Visual Studio 2019, which is what we've installed. This will launch into a special environment that allows us to compile our code. Next, we need to navigate to where we've saved this CPP file. A simple way to do that, we can go to the desktop where we've saved this, and in the command prompt type cd space, and then I can just click and drag the icon and let go, and then it takes me there, and then I press return. Now, once I'm here, I need to type the following command, cl space / and then capital E, capital H, SC, and then a space, and then the name of the file, which is hello universe.cpp. Go ahead and it'll run and compile that. In order to see this, I can run it from the command prompt, the developer command prompt, and just type hello universe.exe, and then it runs it and we see the output in the command prompt. In this example, I want to show how you can use Xcode to write your code, but then use the command line tools to compile it. If you launch Xcode and then if you go directly to File and choose New and then select File, this allows you to create a file based on a template, and we can go to the Mac OS and then C++ file, choose Next. Here we can give it a name. We're going to call this Hello Universe, and we won't worry about creating the header file. We'll just go ahead and choose Next. And it'll ask for location, so we'll go ahead and save it on our desktop for this example. And it's got some template code. We can go ahead and delete this. And I'm going to copy and paste the following code from this course, which looks like this. From here, I can go ahead and save this file, and I can close this out. Next, I want to go to the terminal. And from the terminal, I want to navigate to where I had saved that file. If you go to your desktop, if you open the Finder and you go to your desktop, you can navigate quickly to this location. This happens to be, since we're in the user directory, it's just cd space desktop. And then if we type ls, we can see there. So here we are within the desktop. From here, I'm going to run the following command, g++ space, and then we're going to say -o space, and then give it a name, hello universe space, and then the file hello universe.cpp. This will go ahead and run the command line tools, and notice it has compiled a command line app for us. Note that if you type g++ and then the command and nothing happens and it says file, g++ command not found, make sure that you go back and run Xcode and install the command line tools. So once we have our Hello Universe app, we can double click and it runs in the terminal, and there it is. Let's look at a diagrammatic representation of the compilation model and its elements. When the C++ preprocessor encounters the include file directive, it replaces it with the content of the file, creating an expanded source code file. Then this expanded source code file is compiled into an assembly language for the platform. The assembler converts the file that's generated by the compiler into the object code file. This object code file is linked together with the object code files for any library functions to produce an executable file. Let's now understand the difference between header and source files. Header files contain code that describes the functionalities that are available. These functionalities can be referred to and used by the executable code in the source files, allowing source files to know what functionalities is defined in other source files. On the other hand, source files contain the actual implementation code. Source files typically have the extension .cpp, although other extensions such as .cc, .ccx, or .c++ are also quite common. The most common extensions for header files are .hpp, .hxx, and .h. To create an executable file from the header and the source files, the compiler starts by pre-processing the directives, preceded by the pound sign and generally at the top of the files, that are all contained in the file. Compilation is a process that ensures that a program is syntactically correct, but it does not perform any checks regarding its logical correctness. This means that a program that compiles correctly might still produce undesired results. Every C++ program needs to define a starting point. That is the part of the code that execution should start from. The convention is to have a uniquely named main function in the source code, which will be the first thing to be executed. This function is called by the operating system, so it needs to return a value that indicates the status of the program. For this reason, it is also referred to as the exit status code. We'll now see how to compile a program with two of the most common compilers, the Microsoft Visual Studio compiler and GCC. To compile the myfile.cpp file to an object file named myfile.obj, we can run the following commands. When we compile, it is common to include some headers. We can include the headers defined in the C++ standard without performing any action. But in case we want to include user-defined headers, we need to tell the compiler in which folders to look up the header files. For Visual Studio, you need to pass the parameter as /l path, where path is the path to the directory to look in for the header. For GCC, you need to pass the parameter as -l path, where path has the same meaning as in Visual Studio. If myfile.cpp is including a header in the include directory, we would compile the file with the following commands. We can compile several files in their respective object files and then link them all together to create the final application. To link together two object files called main.obj and mylib.obj into an executable, we can run the following commands. With Visual Studio, we will create an executable named main.exe, while with GCC, the executable will be named main. For convenience, Visual Studio and GCC offer a way to compile several files into an executable without the need to create an object file for each file and then link the files together. Even if, in this case, if the files are including any user-defined headers, you need to specify the header location with the /l or -l flags. To compile the main.cpp and mylib.cpp files together, which uses some headers from the include folder, you can use the following command. Let us define a main function. The first line contains the definition of the function, constituted by the return type int, the name of the main function, and the list of arguments, which in this case is an empty list. Then we have the body of the function, delimited by curly braces. Finally, the body is composed of a single instruction that will return a successful status code. We will discuss these topics in more detail later. What is important to know is that this is a valid C++ program that can be compiled and executed. Note, as opposed to C, in a C++ program, the return statement is optional. The compiler automatically adds return 0 if you don't explicitly return a value. So here I'm going to create a new file, and I'm going to go ahead and save this. And we'll save it to the desktop, and I'm going to call this main, and then we want to save it as a C++ source file and change this to .cpp. Click Save. For the code, we're going to type int main, open and closing parentheses, press return, and then we're going to do an open curly brace, press return, and we're going to type return 0, and we're adding a semicolon at the end, and then press return, and then a closing curly brace. I'm going to go ahead and save that. Go back and open my developer command prompt. From here, we're going to navigate to the desktop. From here, I want to type cd space and then click and drag to get to the desktop. And then we're going to type the following command, cl space /, ehsc space main.cpp, and then you'll notice that it compiles and it generates the file. Note, of course, if we run this, it won't output anything because we haven't indicated any output commands.